The Access Corp office building loomed before me, appearing enormous as I approached with my resume folder in hand. My finances had nearly dried up after 4 months of unemployment. Student loan debt continued accumulating while my landlord's patience wore increasingly thin. That interview from last week had gone surprisingly well, better than my expectations. When they contacted me with an offer paying nearly 20% above my previous salary, acceptance was automatic. My tie received an adjustment, that nervous habit inherited from my father. The lobby featured contemporary design elements, plenty of glass and steel throughout, where a broad-shouldered security guard examined my identification without any trace of a smile. "Thomas Miller here to see Roger Allen," I announced, attempting confidence in my delivery. After a brief phone call, he extended a visitor badge and gestured toward the elevator bank. 14th floor. The elevator doors parted to reveal conventional office surroundings. Gray carpeting, pale walls, and cubicles arranged like a labyrinth. A middle-aged man stood waiting by the reception desk, his hair streaked with gray and lines etched around his eyes. No handshake was offered. "Thomas Miller, punctual." His voice carried a rough quality, though not unkind. "Roger Allen, Data Operations Manager. I'll be your direct supervisor. Grateful for this chance, sir. Looking forward to contributing." Roger studied me with an unreadable expression before indicating a hallway. "Let's get you situated." I anticipated typical first-day activities. HR orientation, benefits enrollment, meeting team members. Instead, Roger guided me directly to a compact cubicle featuring a computer that appeared freshly assembled. "HR forwarded your paperwork. Complete it by lunch." He deposited a manila folder on the desk. "Your login details are inside. The system will require a password change upon initial access." "Shouldn't I complete orientation procedures first?" Roger's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Our HR department operates differently. Online modules will occupy your week." From his pocket, he produced a folded sheet. "These departmental guidelines require immediate attention." I accepted the paper, anticipating standard protocols. Dress code expectations, meal periods, reporting hierarchy. Instead, 4 numbered items appeared. 1. Building entry prohibited before 7 a.m. 2. Building exit required by 8 p.m. 3. Communication with extra team members forbidden. 4. Unattended break room food consumption prohibited. I glanced up, expecting elaboration or additional items. Roger's expression turned serious. "These aren't suggestions, Miller. They're requirements. Non-negotiable ones." His tone allowed no argument. "Follow them without deviation. Regardless of circumstances." "Extra team members?" I questioned, genuinely puzzled. "If you encounter someone unfamiliar, avoid interaction. Notify security." He checked his wristwatch. "Questions about the rules?" Numerous inquiries surfaced, yet something in his demeanor discouraged further discussion. "No, sir." "Good. Sarah Thompson from Analytics will demonstrate database structures after lunch. Focus on paperwork and workstation setup this morning." He departed, leaving me at my new desk with peculiar regulations and growing certainty that Access Corporation differed from my expectations. Morning hours passed completing tax documents and benefit selections while periodically reviewing Roger's list. The specificity seemed excessive, and his seriousness about enforcement appeared unusual. Yet rent payment approached within a week, and my credit card neared its limit. Whatever irregularities existed within this company, the compensation would resolve my financial difficulties. Employees gradually populated the office throughout morning hours. People moved with purposeful energy, exchanging nods but rarely pausing for conversation. I noticed a prominent wall clock visible from virtually every workstation. Multiple times, I observed employees comparing their watches to it. At 12:30, a woman with light brown hair pulled back approached my cubicle. Dark circles beneath her hazel eyes suggested significant fatigue. "Thomas Miller, I'm Sarah Thompson." Her smile appeared rehearsed. "Ready for database orientation?" "Absolutely," I responded, rising. "Please call me Tom." She acknowledged this with a nod but didn't extend reciprocal first-name permission. "The conference room is this direction." During our walk, I attempted casual conversation. "How long have you worked with Access Corporation?" 3 years this June." Her response came clipped, eyes continuously scanning surroundings. "And how do you find it?" She hesitated before answering. "Consistent. Decent benefits. Hardly enthusiastic endorsement." Upon reaching the small conference room, she closed the door and commenced explaining database architecture. Her expertise was evident, guiding me through systems with clarity. Midway through her presentation, I decided to inquire further. "Roger provided for rules this morning," I mentioned casually. Sarah's fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. Her professional composure briefly fractured, revealing something resembling fear. "They're essential," she stated, voice constricted. "Absolutely essential. That extra team member's rule seems unusual." "What exactly?" "The rules exist for specific reasons." She interrupted, eyes darting toward the door. "Following them determines success here." "Right. But regarding the data integration process," she continued, abruptly redirecting discussion. Her shoulders remained tense throughout our remaining time together. Following database training, I returned to my cubicle for email setup. While organizing my workspace, details I'd previously overlooked emerged. Security cameras appeared everywhere, yet seemed directed at employees rather than entry points or valuable equipment. Time checks occurred frequently, and by 7:15 p.m., most employees had departed. At 7:30 p.m., I gathered my belongings. Remaining workers appeared eager to leave. En route to the elevator, I passed senior employees engaged in quiet conversation. "Marcus disregarded protocol," one commented. "Stayed late repeatedly last week. Now he's gone." Another responded, "Desk cleared yesterday." "Third one this quarter," added a third voice. Conversation ceased upon noticing me, tight smiles offered as I passed. Inside the elevator, Roger stood beside me. His loosened tie and tired appearance suggested a long day. "First day assessment?" he inquired without eye contact. "Educational," I replied. "Everyone seems time-conscious." He nodded slightly. "Efficiency holds value here." I mentioned overhearing discussion about someone named Marcus. Roger's posture stiffened. "Office dynamics, nothing concerning you." The elevator reached ground level and he stepped out. 7 a.m. tomorrow, Miller." "Precisely." I observed his departure, his warning lingering in my thoughts. During the train commute home, I processed observations. Unusual regulations, tense atmosphere, cryptic remarks about Marcus. All suggested something abnormal about Access Corporation. Under different circumstances, alternative employment might warrant consideration. But checking my banking balance on my phone brought reality crashing back. My account displayed $127.43. Insufficient for rent, inadequate for minimum student loan payments. Notification of incoming direct deposit from Access Corporation within 2 weeks would address this. Whatever peculiarities existed at my new workplace, compensation was substantial. And currently, that mattered most. The rules appeared straightforward enough to follow, regardless of purpose. I dismissed concerns. Every workplace possessed quirks, politics, unwritten expectations. I'd navigated such things before. What harm could following a few strange guidelines cause? Little did I realize that at Access Corporation, rule compliance wasn't merely about workplace etiquette or company policy. It concerned survival. Exactly 1 week following my initial day at Access Corporation, I entered the parking structure at 6:59 a.m. I remained in my vehicle watching the dashboard clock until it reached 7 o'clock before exiting. The concrete parking area sat mostly vacant, perhaps a dozen vehicles scattered throughout the early morning space. Something caught my attention in the far corner. The security guard from my first day circled a dusty Toyota Corolla, documenting something on a clipboard. His expression remained neutral, as though perfected over time. "Morning," I offered while passing, messenger bag across my shoulder. He looked up, eyes quickly registering my face and badge. "Mr. Miller, arriving early today." "Not too early," I responded, tapping my watch. "Exactly 7. Joseph gestured toward the Toyota. "Know anything about Reynolds?" "Brian Reynolds." The name wasn't familiar. "No." "Should I?" "New hire like you. Data analyst, West Wing." He ran fingers through short hair. "This belongs to him. Been here since yesterday morning." I stopped walking. "He didn't drive home last night. Arrived at 6:45 yesterday." Security system logged his badge. Joseph's eyes met mine. "Never logged out." Unease settled in my stomach. Maybe someone gave him a ride. Maybe. Joseph didn't sound convinced. "Building services wants to know whether to report it abandoned." I examined the vehicle again. A gym bag occupied the back seat. A 2-day-old parking ticket remained under the windshield wiper. Small details suggesting its owner hadn't planned abandonment. "I haven't met him yet," I said. "Still learning everyone." Joseph nodded, adding another notation to his clipboard. "Well, if you hear anything, notify security." I continued to the elevator, Brian Reynolds' situation turning in my mind. As doors closed, I recalled rule number 1. Building entry prohibited before 7 a.m. Brian had arrived 15 minutes early. The workday proceeded normally. Computer login, email checks, continued familiarization with database structures Sarah had demonstrated. Around 10 a.m., a human resources email appeared in everyone's inbox. "Please be advised that Brian Reynolds has resigned his position, effective immediately. His responsibilities will be redistributed among team members until replacement hired. We wish him well in future endeavors." Standard corporate language for unexpected departure. I closed the email and returned to work, yet couldn't escape the image of Brian's abandoned vehicle in the parking structure. At lunch, I visited the break room, carefully avoiding unattended food items. The room was partially occupied, conversations dropping to murmurs upon my entrance. I recognized someone from orientation who worked near Brian's area. "Hey," I said, sitting with my homemade sandwich. "You work near Brian Reynolds, right?" He looked up from his phone, eyes darting around before responding. "Yeah, why?" "Just curious about the sudden resignation. Seems abrupt." "Happens." He shrugged, body language closing off. "People come and go." His car remains in the parking garage. The man stood, lunch half finished. "Look, I have a meeting." He departed, leaving me alone at the table. Throughout afternoon hours, I attempted gathering information about Brian, yet everyone responded similarly. Brief answers followed by rapid exits. By day's end, I'd learned only that Brian was young, ambitious, and had mentioned staying late for workload catch-up. While packing to leave precisely at 7:30 p.m., I noticed Roger standing near elevators. His eyes followed me across the floor. "Miller," he said as I approached. "Settling in?" "Yes, sir." "Progressing?" His eyes appeared tired, lines deeper than I remembered from the previous week. "So you looking at Reynolds's vehicle this morning?" I hadn't realized he'd been in the garage. The security guard mentioned he arrived early yesterday. Roger's jaw tightened. "First rule exists for a reason, Miller." Without awaiting response, he walked away, disappearing around a corner. Weekend hours provided thinking time. Brian Reynolds had violated Rule 1 and subsequently vanished. The company claimed resignation, yet his car remained abandoned. Nobody wanted discussion about him. Concern about Access Corporation grew within me. I opened my laptop, beginning searches for company information. Their public website displayed typical corporate language. Innovation, excellence, client satisfaction. Nothing unusual. I dug deeper through business news archives and employee review sites. Patterns began emerging. Access Corporation showed unusually high turnover compared to industry standards. Former employees left vague reviews mentioning strange workplace culture and arbitrary regulations. One comment caught attention. "Follow their rules exactly or you won't last long." Several news articles referenced workplace incidents at Access Corporation, though details remained limited. 3 years ago, a police investigation followed an employee disappearance, later closed without explanation. The building had changed ownership multiple times throughout its 20-year history, with Access Corporation occupying it for the past 8 years. Nothing I found explained the strict rules or strange atmosphere, yet everything pointed toward something wrong at the company. Monday morning arrived, and I entered at precisely 7 a.m. Brian's Toyota remained in the garage, now bearing a notice warning of towing within 48 hours if unclaimed. Upon reaching the 14th floor, a cleaning crew entered Brian's desk. They worked quickly, placing personal items in a cardboard box while wiping surfaces. A family photograph, a small desk plant, a Northwestern University mug. By the time I powered on my computer, all traces of Brian Reynolds had vanished from the office. Sarah passed my cubicle around noon, her pace quickening when she noticed me looking. "Sarah," I called, maintaining casual tone. "Got a moment?" She hesitated before approaching, fingers nervously adjusting her watch. "What do you need, Thomas?" "Just wondering about Brian Reynolds. Did you work with him at all?" Her face tightened. "Not directly. Seems odd his car remains if he resigned." Sarah glanced around, then leaned closer. "Look, it's better not to ask about people who leave." Her voice dropped barely above whisper. "Just follow the rules. All of them, always." "What do you know?" She cut me off. "If you want to last here, you won't either." She straightened, resuming professional demeanor. "Let me know if you need help with the quarterly report format." That evening, I remained until 7:30, observing the emptying office around me. The urgency with which people packed and departed by 7:45 spoke volumes. Nobody risked breaking Rule 2. At home, I retrieved a small notebook, beginning documentation of observations. I listed the 4 rules, then added notes about Brian Reynolds and his Rule 1 violation. Dates gathered from news articles about past Access Corporation incidents were recorded, searching for patterns. Most employee departures followed unusual behavior. Arriving too early, staying too late, or as mentioned in one discovered review, communicating with wrong people. The rules weren't arbitrary corporate policies. They were survival mechanisms. I closed the notebook and made a decision. Whatever occurred at Access Corporation, whatever happened to Brian Reynolds, self-protection was necessary. The salary warranted staying. My banking balance already showed improvement after just one paycheck, but not at risk of disappearing like Brian. From now on, every rule would be followed precisely, no exceptions, regardless of circumstances. Multiple alarms were set on my phone. One for 6:55 a.m. ensuring I never arrived early, another for 7:15 p.m. guaranteeing I never remained after 8 o'clock. The rules remained clear. 1. Building entry prohibited before 7 a.m. 2. Building exit required by 8 p.m. 3. Communication with extra team members forbidden. 4. Unattended break room food consumption prohibited. Simple enough to follow, even without understanding what protection they provided. Until learning more about Access Corporation's reality, strict compliance offered best defense. 3 weeks into my Access Corporation position, I sat at my desk staring at my computer screen with mounting frustration. The quarterly data migration report Roger had assigned that morning proved more complex than anticipated. Each time I thought a section completed, inconsistencies emerged requiring deeper investigation. I glanced at the wall clock. 7:15 p.m. The office had grown quiet around me as colleagues departed, everyone accelerating as time progressed. My section sat empty now, overhead lights buzzing softly in the silence. Since discovering Brian Reynolds' situation, I'd been meticulous about following all four rules. Arrival exactly at 7 a.m. each morning. Avoiding any unattended break room food. Ensuring departure toward my vehicle by 7:30 p.m. latest. I even started keeping eyes lowered while walking through the building, fearful of encountering someone who might be an extra team member. But today's report couldn't wait. Roger had made that clear when delivering it that morning. The executive team requires this for their 9 a.m. meeting tomorrow, he'd stated, tone permitting no negotiation. Complete it, Miller. I checked my watch again and attempted focus. The database query I'd written pulled additional numbers conflicting with previous quarter figures. Deeper digging needed to locate discrepancy source. Conflicting desires pulled at me, wanting to follow rules yet avoid disappointing my new employer. Just another 15 minutes, I muttered. Cutting it close, but I can still make it out by 8. I returned to data, tracing inconsistencies through multiple tables. Solution proved harder to find than expected, requiring documentation review and historical report examination. When I finally identified the problem, an improperly formatted date field causing duplicate transaction counts, genuine satisfaction emerged. Only upon completing the fix and running final validation did I check time again. The clock read 7:55 p.m. Panic surged immediately as I saved work and shut down. Messenger bag packing became hurried, papers stuffed inside without organization. 5 minutes to exit the building. Possible if I hurried. The elevator seemed interminable arriving. I jabbed the call button repeatedly, checking my watch with increasing anxiety. 7:58 p.m. 7:59 p.m. The elevator doors finally slid open and I stepped inside, pressing lobby button. Digital display above showed 8:01 p.m. Just as I reached the 5th floor, the elevator jerked to a halt, lights flickering before dimming. A moment later they returned, but dimmer than before. The elevator remained motionless. I pressed lobby again. Nothing happened. Door open button followed, then emergency call. No response. Come on, I muttered, pressing buttons randomly. After what felt like minutes but was actually seconds, the elevator moved downward, then stopped at the 14th floor, the floor I'd just left. Doors opened with a soft chime that seemed disturbingly normal. The office space sat dark. Overhead lights normally operating 24/7 now glowed at less than half brightness. Cubicles appeared strange and unfamiliar in the diminished light. Uncertain whether to remain in elevator or seek stairs, the decision was made for me when elevator doors closed again while the car remained stationary. Buttons remained unresponsive. door opened, pressed again, and the elevator reopened to the 14th floor. Reluctantly, I stepped out. The cold hit immediately. The office maintained steady 72 degrees normally, but now the air felt much colder, perhaps 50 degrees, and damp, intensifying the chill. I pulled my jacket tighter. Then the smell reached me. A rotten egg odor filled the air, intensifying each moment. I covered my nose with my sleeve, fighting nausea. Finding the stairwell became priority. If I could reach lobby, main doors offered escape. Moving through the darkened office began, following dim overhead lights. A sound stopped me. Heavy footsteps from the far corridor, the one leading to executive offices. Slow, weighty steps causing slight floor vibration beneath my feet. Then laughter emerged. A low, guttural sound that seemed inhuman. It reminded me of what a large dog might sound like if capable of laughter, but distorted with multiple layers simultaneously. Instinct took over. I ducked into the nearest cubicle, my own, and crawled beneath the desk, making myself as small as possible. Bag pulled close, breathing quieted, suddenly aware of how loud respiration sounded in the silent office. Footsteps approached, accompanied by other sounds. Furniture moving. Objects falling. Whatever existed out there was searching the office, moving from cubicle to cubicle. I tracked its position through sound alone, too terrified to look out from hiding. Footsteps and noise followed a pattern, down one cubicle row, then the next, drawing closer to my location. A loud crash occurred just 2 cubicles away, like a computer monitor striking the floor. The rotten egg smell intensified, accompanied by another odor, something decomposing, like spoiled meat. The thing entered the adjacent cubicle. Breathing became audible now. Raspy, wet breath suggesting fluid-filled lungs. It would breathe, then make loud sniffing sounds like an animal tracking by scent. I pressed against the back of my hiding spot, attempting to disappear into cheap office furniture. Footsteps stopped just outside my cubicle. Sniffing grew louder. Something moved into my workspace. From beneath the desk, I could only see partial hallway and a strange shadow darkening the already dim light. Whatever cast that shadow was massive, larger than any person. It sniffed again, taking a long breath, ending with a rough sound of interest. It had detected me. The shadow moved deeper into my cubicle. Scratching sounds came from above, like claws or nails dragging across the desk surface. Papers fell to the floor. Fear made breathing nearly impossible. The breathing drew closer. The thing was bending down, about to look beneath the desk. Terror so overwhelming caused words to escape before I could prevent them. "I'm not here," I whispered, immediately regretting any sound. The entity froze. Breathing stopped. Air grew even colder, condensation forming on metal chair components. Long seconds passed in complete silence. Then, unexpectedly, the shadow withdrew. Footsteps resumed, moving away from my cubicle, continuing down the row, but without previous searching behavior. I remained perfectly still, afraid any movement might draw its attention back. Footsteps and occasional disturbant sounds grew more distant, eventually fading completely. Still, I didn't move. Only when overhead lights blinked and returned to normal brightness did I dare check my watch. 8:30 p.m. I'd been hiding nearly half an hour. Sulfur smell had dissipated and temperature was returning to normal. Cautiously, I crawled from beneath the desk and stood, legs stiff from prolonged positioning. The office appeared normal except for mess in several cubicles. Computer monitors lay smashed on floors. Chairs were overturned, papers scattered everywhere. My own desk had papers thrown about, but nothing broken. I didn't wait to investigate further. Grabbing my bag, I ran for the stairwell, taking stairs 2 at a time down to lobby. The night security guard looked up in surprise as I burst through the stairwell door, sweating and breathless. "Everything okay, Mr. Miller?" he asked, reaching for his phone. "Fine," I managed, not slowing toward exit. "Working late. Good night." I didn't stop running until reaching my car in the parking structure. Once inside, doors locked, I sat there, hands shaking too severely to insert key immediately. When finally able to start the car and exit the garage, I continuously checked rearview mirror, half expecting something following. Sleep came difficult that night. Every apartment noise caused tension. I lay awake replaying events, attempting comprehension. What was that thing? Why had it seemed to listen when I said I wasn't there? What would have happened if it had found me? Next morning, I arrived at work at 7 a.m., exhausted yet determined to maintain routine. When elevator doors opened on the 14th floor, I half expected destruction aftermath, yet everything appeared normal. Cubicles that had been searched were tidy, computers intact, papers neatly stacked. I walked to my desk in disbelief, wondering if I'd imagined everything. But sitting down, I noticed my desk papers arranged differently than I'd left them, organized into neat piles rather than chaotic mess from last night. Roger waited by my desk when I returned from getting coffee. His grim expression tracked my movements as I set down my mug. "You stayed late last night," he stated, not questioning. I nodded, initially unable to find words. "The quarterly migration report." I lost track of time. "Until when?" I tried leaving at 8, but the elevator, I paused, uncertain how much to reveal. Roger's expression decided me. Something was in the office after 8 last night. It searched the place, knocked things over. Almost found me hiding under my desk. Roger's expression didn't change, but color drained from his face. "You saw it?" "No, just its shadow." "I heard it moving, smelled it, the sulfur." "And how did you avoid it?" I hesitated, feeling foolish. I told it I wasn't there. Just whispered it, and it listened. "Left." Roger took a deep breath, tension visible in his shoulders. "Don't break rule 2 again, Miller. You got lucky. Many haven't." "What was it?" I asked. Roger looked around the office, now filling with arriving employees. "Not here." He lowered voice. "Just follow the rules. All of them. No exceptions." He walked away without another word, leaving me with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear. The rules weren't random company policies. They were protection against whatever occupied the building after hours. That afternoon, I set multiple alarms on my phone. 7:10 p.m., 7:20 p.m., and 7:30 p.m. Each with increasingly urgent messages. I programmed my computer to display reminders at 7 o'clock. I even set my watch to vibrate every 15 minutes after 7 o'clock. From that day forward, I was never in the building past 7:30 p.m. Whatever report, project, or task remained unfinished would wait until morning. No deadline warranted facing that thing again. As I drove home that evening, well before sunset, I couldn't stop thinking about those whispered words. "I'm not here." And why they had worked. It seemed impossible. Yet somehow the thing had listened, had accepted my denial of existence. The rules protected us, but I was beginning to think they were merely temporary measures against something that had claimed the building as its territory. Something that only emerged after hours, seeking those who stayed too late. The stack of papers on my desk had grown since my encounter with the entity after hours. I buried myself in work during my 4th week at Access Corporation, arriving exactly at 7 a.m. and departing by 7:30 p.m. without fail. The strict schedule had become my way of navigating this increasingly strange workplace without attracting unwanted attention. I was reviewing last quarter's financial projections when someone moved near my cubicle. Michael Parker walked past, nodding casual greeting before continuing to the break room. I returned to my spreadsheet, yet something bothered me. Something about Michael seemed off. 5 minutes later, I looked up as Michael passed again, this time heading toward his desk. I blinked, suddenly alert. Hadn't he just gone to the break room? I hadn't seen him return. Confused, I stood and looked over my cubicle wall. Michael sat at his desk typing on his computer. His auburn hair and gap-toothed smile appeared identical when he glanced up and noticed me watching. He waved, friendly as ever. I didn't wave back. Instead, I pulled up the company directory on my computer and found Michael's profile. The photo showed his distinctive features: thick-framed glasses, neatly trimmed beard, gap between front teeth. I looked back at the man sitting at Michael's desk. He appeared almost identical, but now that I paid attention, small differences emerged. His beard was slightly fuller, glasses frames thinner, and when he smiled at a passing coworker, I didn't see the tooth gap. Unease settled as I recalled rule number 3. Do not communicate with extra team members. I'd assumed extra team members meant unauthorized visitors or temporary workers. Now staring at this almost but not quite Michael, I wondered if it meant something far more sinister. Throughout morning hours, I observed the fake Michael's movements while pretending to work. He performed Michael's job as if knowing it well, attending meetings, making phone calls, chatting with colleagues. Nobody seemed to notice anything unusual about him. He'd smile whenever our eyes accidentally met, and each time I quickly looked away, remembering the rule. By lunchtime, my neck ached from tension. I took my homemade lunch to the break room, choosing a seat with back to the wall so I could watch the door. The fake Michael entered a few minutes later, carrying a sandwich from the cafe across the street. The same lunch the real Michael often brought. Sarah Thompson sat down beside me, her own lunch neatly packed in glass containers. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "You've been acting strange all morning." "Fine," I replied, not looking at her. My eyes remained fixed on the imposter now chatting easily with 2 web team developers. Is something wrong with Michael? Sarah followed my gaze. I turned to her, keeping voice low. "That's not Michael." Sarah looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "He's sitting right there." "Look closely," I urged. "His beard is different. The glasses are wrong. That's not the Michael from the team photo." Sarah stared at the man for several seconds, then turned back to me with concerned expression. "Thomas, that's definitely Michael. Same as always. Why are you being rude to him? He said you've ignored his waves twice." I felt sick. The fake Michael had been discussing me with Sarah. Trust me, something's not right. I kept voice calm despite racing mind. That's not the real Michael Parker. Sarah's face shifted from concern to nervousness. She packed her lunch, though barely touched. "Maybe you're working too hard, not sleeping enough." She stood to leave, then paused. "Remember what I told you about asking questions? Some things are better left alone." After she left, I avoided the break room for the rest of the day, eating remaining lunch at my desk. I kept head down, focusing on work while remaining acutely aware of the fake Michael's movements throughout the office. Each time he passed my cubicle, I could feel him watching, though I never looked up to confirm. At 3:15 p.m., my desk phone rang. Roger's gruff voice came through. "Conference room, see now." I went to the conference room. Roger was already inside with blinds drawn, expression serious. He motioned for me to sit without greeting. "You've noticed," he stated once I'd closed the door. "The fake Michael." I nodded. "Nobody else sees it." Roger's expression didn't change, but something resembling approval showed in his eyes. "Most don't. Not until too late." He turned a laptop on the conference table showing security video of the lobby. Timestamp read 7 a.m. that morning. The video showed Michael Parker entering the building, swiping his badge at security. The guard nodded greeting as Michael headed toward elevators. Roger fast-forwarded 10 minutes. At 7:10 a.m., Michael Parker entered the building again, wearing same clothes, swiping same badge. Joseph nodded identically, clearly not noticing he'd already seen Michael that morning. "Two Michaels," I whispered. "The second one is what we call an extra," Roger explained, closing laptop. "They appear periodically. Perfect copies as far as most can tell, but not to everyone." He looked at me with renewed interest. "You saw differences immediately. That's rare. What are they?" My mouth felt dry. Roger leaned back in his chair. "We don't know exactly. They mimic our employees, integrate themselves into the office. Mostly harmless until someone engages directly with them. What happens then? The person who engages disappears." Roger's tone was matter-of-fact. "Sometimes within hours, sometimes days later, but they always disappear." Implications hit me. Brian Reynolds, did he engage with an extra the day before he disappeared? Security footage showed him having lengthy conversation with someone who looked exactly like me. I was in Chicago that day at a conference. I remembered Brian's abandoned car in the parking structure. And Marcus? Same story, different extra. Roger rubbed his eyes, suddenly appearing every one of his 50-plus years. "That's why the rules exist, Miller. They're not corporate policies. They're survival mechanisms. We figured them out over years of incidents." "Does HR know?" "The executives. Some do. Some don't want to." He stood, signaling conversation conclusion. "The important thing is you noticed. Keep doing that, and remember Rule 3. No exceptions." Before opening the door, he added, "And verify who exits the building with you. Always. The extras never leave through main doors. They use other ways out. If you see someone heading towards service exits or stairwells at day's end, keep distance." I returned to my desk in daze, Access Corporation's supernatural problem becoming clearer yet no less terrifying. The rules weren't merely important. They were literally life-saving protocols developed through tragedy and loss. At 7:25 p.m., I packed my things following strict routine. The office had emptied considerably with only few people still finishing. While waiting for elevator, I noticed the fake Michael walking toward parking garage elevators several yards behind Alex Hayes. Alex had been friendly during my first weeks, often stopping by my cubicle for chats. He didn't appreciate Roger's rules, frequently staying past 7:30 and sometimes taking break-room food without checking ownership. Now the imposter followed him, maintaining casual distance that wouldn't seem suspicious to someone unaware of danger. I pulled out my phone and texted Alex. "The Michael behind you isn't real. Don't talk to him." Rule 3. I watched Alex check his phone as he entered elevator. He looked back at the fake Michael, then at me waiting by main elevators. He rolled eyes and typed response. My phone buzzed with his reply. "You're taking these rules too seriously, man. Loosen up." Elevator doors closed, taking Alex and the imposter out of sight. I stood there, uncertain what to do. Should I try following? Call security? But what could I say that wouldn't sound insane to anyone who couldn't see differences? My own elevator arrived and I stepped inside. As doors closed, I wondered if Alex would heed my warning or if his disregard for rules would lead to unimaginable trouble. I spent weekend thinking about Alex. Every few hours, I checked my phone, hoping for text or missed call confirming his safety. Nothing arrived. By Sunday night, I'd convinced myself he might not appear Monday. Perhaps he'd vanished like Brian Reynolds, his car left in parking structure with tow notice taped to windshield. But Monday morning, Alex walked past my cubicle at 9:15, carrying coffee, looking completely normal. He nodded with his usual easy smile, showing no distress. Relief washed over me. He'd survived his encounter with the fake Michael. "Morning," I said, suppressing urge to ask about the imposter. "Hey." He didn't stop walking. Didn't mention my text warning. I wanted to pull him aside, verify it was truly him and not another copy, but Roger's warning kept me silent. Verify, but don't engage. Around 10:30, I went to break room for coffee. The small room sat empty, but something new occupied the center table. A chocolate cake in clear plastic container. A yellow post-it note stuck to top read "Help yourself" in looping handwriting. The cake appeared perfect with smooth chocolate frosting and what looked like chocolate shavings decorating top. Rich aroma made my stomach growl. I hadn't eaten breakfast and the smell was difficult resisting. I took another step toward the cake, then stopped. Rule number 4, do not consume unattended food in break room areas. After my experience with the after-hours entity and learning about extras, I wasn't taking chances. I backed away from cake and turned to coffee machine, keeping eyes on my mug while filling. Door opened behind me and Alex walked in. He spotted cake immediately, face lighting up. "Sweet." Someone brought cake. He headed straight for it. "I wouldn't," I said, keeping voice casual. "You know the rules." Alex rolled eyes while lifting plastic cover. "These rules are just Roger's power trip. Come on, it's just cake. Someone's birthday probably. Still." I set my coffee down. Rule 4 exists for a reason. Like Rule 3 about your imaginary fake Michael. Alex laughed, picking up plastic knife beside cake. "I talked to Michael this morning. He said you've been acting weird around him for days." That wasn't. I stopped, remembering Roger's explanation. Most people couldn't see differences in extras. Alex couldn't comprehend danger he couldn't perceive. Alex cut generous cake slice, knife sinking through chocolate frosting easily. "This looks amazing." He placed it on paper plate and took plastic fork from drawer. I reached for my phone, thinking to call Roger, but break room door opened again. Roger stood in doorway, his expression shifting from normal to alarmed as he saw Alex lifting forkful of cake to mouth. "Hayes," Roger started, but too late. Alex took large bite, making appreciative sound. "God, that's good," he said, taking another bite before Roger could finish. "You guys are missing out." Roger looked at me and shook head slightly, warning against involvement. His face had gone pale. "Miller, need you in my office," Roger said, voice tight. "Hayes, enjoy your cake." Roger turned and walked out. I followed, glancing back once at Alex giving thumbs up while continuing to eat, completely unaware of Roger's reaction. In Roger's office, he closed door and sat heavily in his chair. "I tried warning him," I said. Roger nodded, rubbing forehead. "I know. Some people can't be saved from themselves." He looked at me directly. "You did right, not eating it. What's going to happen to Alex?" Roger didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was flat. "Nothing good. Should we call someone? Get medical help?" "It won't help." Roger glanced at computer screen, then back at me. "Damage already done. Go back to work, Miller, and stay away from Hayes for rest of day." I wanted to ask more questions, but Roger had already turned to keyboard, typing with short, sharp keystrokes making clear our conversation was finished. Throughout day, I watched Alex from distance. First few hours, he seemed fine, working at computer, attending team meeting around noon. By mid-afternoon, though, I noticed him occasionally rubbing stomach, face appearing sweaty even in cool office. At 4:30, he left early, walking quickly toward elevators with messenger bag pressed against side. I tried catching his eye as he passed, but he looked straight ahead, normally confident walk now hunched and tense. Next morning, I arrived exactly at 7 a.m. as usual. Joseph, the security guard, gave me sad nod while badging in, face more serious than normal. "Everything okay?" I asked. Joseph glanced around, then leaned closer. "Police activity at Lincoln Park this morning. One of your colleagues, I heard." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "Don't know name. Young guy lived in those new apartment buildings on Clark. Alex lived on Clark Street. I dropped him off once after we'd both stayed late finishing Henderson project. When I reached 14th floor, everyone seemed tense. Small employee groups stood near kitchen talking quietly. I saw Sarah by window looking worried while checking phone. "Sarah." I approached cautiously. "What happened?" She looked up, eyes red and puffy. "Alex Hayes, he's dead." Even though Joseph's words had prepared me, hearing confirmation hit hard. "How?" "They found him in his bathroom this morning. His roommate called 911 when he wouldn't respond." Sarah's voice dropped to whisper. "Paramedics are saying it looked like he'd been throwing up black stuff. All over his mouth and in the sink." Black stuff. The cake had been chocolate. I felt sick. "When did it happen?" "Last night sometime. His roommate heard him in bathroom around midnight. Thought he had food poisoning." Sarah put phone away, hand shaking slightly. "HR sent email. They are bringing grief counselors this afternoon." I nodded, not knowing what to say. Alex had been healthy, early 30s. Now dead, less than 24 hours after eating that cake. Day passed in blur of whispered conversations and shocked faces. Most people believed Alex died from sudden illness, perhaps undetected heart condition or allergic reaction. Nobody mentioned cake. At 5:15 p.m., Roger called me into his office again. This time, he closed blinds before speaking. "You heard about Hayes?" He gestured for me to sit. "Yeah, Sarah told me." Roger nodded, expression grim. "I want to be clear about something, Miller. That cake wasn't meant for Hayes." I stared at him, not understanding initially, then with growing horror as comprehension dawned. "It was meant for me." "Yes. They're targeting you now." Roger leaned forward, voice low. "Your ability to see extras, your strict rule following, it's drawn attention." "They? What are you talking about?" "Who's they?" Roger's look was steady. "Whatever controls this building. The entities that exist here." A chill ran through me as I recalled the thing that had searched office after hours. The one I encountered when staying late. That's one manifestation. There are others. Roger looked tired, lines in his face deeper than usual. "The rules keep them from noticing you, from marking you." "The cake was poisoned," I said, mind racing to process new information. "Not in the way you're thinking." Roger tapped fingers on his desk. Nervous habit I'd never seen from him before. "The food they leave, it creates a connection. A way for them to find you later. To feed." "Feed on what?" Roger's silence was answer enough. "What exactly is happening here?" I demanded, anger momentarily overpowering fear. "What is this place?" Roger paused, like deciding what to share. Finally, he said, "Something inhuman lives in this building. Has for decades. The rules keep it from noticing you." I thought about all I'd witnessed in my short time at Access Corporation. Brian Reynolds's disappearance after arriving early. the entity that had hunted me after hours. The fake Michael no one else could identify. And now Alex dead after eating unattended food. The rules aren't arbitrary policy, I said slowly. They're defense mechanisms against predators. Roger nodded once. Now you understand. Why does anyone work here? Why don't people leave? Some do when they can. Others. Roger shrugged. Pay is good. Benefits excellent. And where would they go? Job market tight, especially for specialized roles. Most people don't notice anything strange anyway. Their minds can't process it. But you see it, I said. You know what's happening. 20 years in this building, Miller. I've seen things. He stopped, looking down at hands. I've lost people. Good people who broke rules or just got unlucky. I've learned how to survive here. I thought about my near-empty bank account, student loans, relief of that first paycheck, desperation that had made me accept this job initially. What do I do now? Keep following rules, all of them. Be even more careful than before. Roger opened desk drawer and pulled out small silver device resembling key fob. Carry this. Won't stop them, but might warn you when they're close. Extras hate the high-frequency tone it emits. I took the device. It looked fairly normal, just one small button on side. Press if you see anything unusual. One press activates, another deactivates. Roger stood, signaling conversation conclusion. And Miller, don't tell anyone else what I've told you. Most couldn't handle it, and those who could might do something stupid. I pocketed device and nodded. Thank you. Walking back to my desk, I realized implications. Access Corporation wasn't just office with strange rules. It was place where something inhuman hunted for its next target. And that target might be me. I sat at computer, pretending to work while processing everything Roger had revealed. Rules weren't random. They were survival methods in place where dangerous things appeared as normal people, left gifts, and took those who weren't careful. Alex had paid price for dismissing those rules. I wasn't making same mistake. I stood in back row at Alex's funeral, watching his family accept condolences from stream of Access Corporation employees. His mother held tissue, eyes red and swollen. His father stood beside her, shaking hands without emotion. They looked confused, trying to understand how healthy 31-year-old son died so suddenly. Official cause listed as acute gastrointestinal hemorrhage. Medical examiner found no explanation for why Alex's digestive system had essentially dissolved from inside. The cake, that normal-looking chocolate cake, had killed him in less than 24 hours. Should have been me. Roger's words kept replaying. That cake wasn't meant for Hayes. Entities in building had marked me, and Alex paid price for my ability to see through their disguises. I slipped out before service ended, unable to look at Alex's photo on memorial stand longer. I'd known him barely a month, yet felt terrible about his death. 3 days later, I sat in car at Access Corporation parking structure at 6:58 a.m., watching seconds tick on dashboard clock. 2 minutes until 7 a.m., earliest we could safely enter according to Rule 1. I'd followed rules religiously since first day, but now needed understanding of why they worked. Small silver device Roger gave me sat on passenger seat beside EMF meter I'd ordered online. If something supernatural lived in building, it might emit measurable electromagnetic frequencies. Long shot, but needed starting point. At exactly 7 a.m., I grabbed equipment, tucked into laptop bag, and headed into building. Joseph Martinez nodded from behind security desk as I badged in. Morning, Mr. Miller. Morning, Joseph. I looked at security monitors behind him. One showed parking structure, another main entrance, several others switching between different hallways and elevator banks. One screen showed only static. Camera issues? I asked, pointing to snow-filled screen. Joseph's eyes moved to it and back to me. Maintenance problem. They're working on it. I nodded and headed to elevators. Inside, I looked at button panel. Floors 1 through 20 clearly marked, but I'd never paid attention to which departments occupied which floors beyond our 14th floor data operations. I pressed button for 5th floor. Nothing happened. Pressed again harder. Button didn't light like others. Frowning, I selected 14th floor and elevator began ascending. Upon reaching desk, I pulled up company directory on computer. Each department listed with floor number, but no entry for 5th floor. I opened building evacuation map from employee website. There it was, floor 5, clearly marked with exit routes, extinguisher locations, emergency stairwells. Floor that officially existed but couldn't be reached. I began workday as usual, handling data requests and updating databases. At lunch, I took stairs down to 6th floor, then tried continuing to 5th. Door between floors 6 and 5 was locked with keypad. Unusual for fire exit. Back at desk, I pulled up security footage archived accessible through data operations role. Most employees couldn't view these files, but Roger had given me database permissions last week for corrupted entry fixes. I still had access. I searched backward through employee badge scans looking for clues. Brian Reynolds' disappearance. Marcus before him. 3 others I'd found from our automated resignation emails. Created spreadsheet with dates. Connection appeared immediately. 27 days. Each disappearance occurred every 27 days, give or take 1. If pattern continued, someone else would vanish in exactly 11 days. Miller. I quickly minimized spreadsheet as Roger's voice came from behind. I turned to find him standing at cubicle entrance with coffee cup, eyes narrowed. Roger, what's up? Let's talk in my office. I followed, trying to appear casual. Had he somehow seen my research? Did building itself monitor activities? Roger closed office door and waved for me to sit. He took time settling into chair, looking at me with unreadable expression. You've been busy this morning, he finally said. Just catching up on work. Accessing security archives isn't your job. Neither is attempting access to 5th floor. I tried not to look surprised. How did you, 20 years here, Miller? You think I don't notice when someone starts pulling threads? He sipped coffee. Tell me what you found. I paused, uncertain if test. Roger had warned caution, given device to detect extras. But how far did his help extend? 27 days, I said. That's pattern. Every 27 days, someone disappears. Roger's eyebrows rose slightly. Go on. And 5th floor exists on paper but not reality. On every evacuation map, but inaccessible via elevators or stairs. What else? I pulled EMF meter from pocket. Wanted to measure electromagnetic fluctuations near disappearance locations. See if scientific explanation exists for what's happening. Roger set coffee down and leaned back. For a long moment, he simply looked at me as if deciding something. Then sighed. This building wasn't always like this, he said quietly. When I started, it was normal. Boring even. Just another corporate office. What happened? 15 years ago, executive team brought consultant. Some new age type promising improved workplace energy and productivity. Roger's mouth twisted. They performed ritual in executive conference room on 5th floor. Candles, chanting, the works. Most staff considered it joke. But it wasn't. No. Roger rubbed forehead. They opened something they couldn't close. First disappearance happened that night. CEO's assistant. 1 minute working late, next minute gone. Personal items still on desk, car in garage, never seen again. I thought about Brian Reynolds' car sitting abandoned in structure. Then things started changing. 5th floor became inaccessible overnight. Elevators would stop working specific times. Food left in break rooms would vanish, then reappear identical but wrong. People started seeing copies of co-workers. Extras, I said. Yes. And people kept disappearing. Always when they broke some pattern we hadn't identified yet. Roger's eyes had distant look. Took years to figure out rules. Each discovered through loss. His voice cracked slightly on last word. Why stay? Why does anyone stay once they realize? Roger's look sharpened. Where would we go? Thing that lives here now, it marks people. Those who learn too much, see too much. It doesn't just let them walk away. So rules protect us, but also cage us. Exactly. He nodded. Higher-ups know something wrong, but most can't perceive clearly. They've convinced themselves it's bad luck or stress or typical turnover. Their minds can't process reality. But yours can. And mine. Yes. Rare. Maybe 1 in 50 can see extras for what they are. Roger studied me. Your notice about 27-day cycle, that's new. I knew pattern existed but couldn't pin down exactly. I considered implications. So in 11 days, someone else vanishes. Roger nodded. Unless they're very, very careful. My EMF meter suddenly lit up, needle swinging into red zone. Simultaneously, Roger's computer monitor flashed, screen black for a second before returning normal. It's listening, Roger whispered, eyes darting to corners. Always is. EMF meter returned normal readings. I pocketed it and tried appearing calm despite chill of fear. Need to process all this, I said. Roger nodded. Be careful, Miller. Rules protect you, but only if followed completely. No exceptions, no tests, no looking for answers. I returned to desk, mind racing. Rest of day, I performed job mechanically while processing Roger's revelations. Ritual that opened something. 15-year haunting claiming countless victims. Rules that protected but also imprisoned. I faced choice. Leave Access Corporation, knowing I might become target outside protective rule structure. Or stay and attempt survival in building containing something inhuman that hunted people. That afternoon, HR email arrived. Internal opportunity, executive assistant position, 5th floor operations. Salary listed at triple my current earnings. Requirements matched my qualifications exactly, as if position designed specifically for me. Bait. That's what it was. Thing was offering direct 5th floor access, center of whatever had been unleashed 15 years ago. It wanted me there for some reason. I closed email without responding and pulled up spreadsheet again. Past weeks, I documented every strange occurrence witnessed or heard about. Thing that hunted after 8 p.m. extras that periodically appeared. Food causing Alex's death. Patterns emerged. After hours hunter never appeared on rainy days. Extras couldn't perfectly replicate unique physical features. Food left as bait always sweet, never savory. At 7:25 p.m., I packed belongings, ensuring departure before 8 o'clock deadline. Instead of heading to parking structure, I went to Roger's office. He remained there reviewing reports with desk lamp on, overhead lights already off. He looked up as I entered. Miller, what is it? Got job offer for 5th floor, I said, Closing door behind me. Triple current salary. Roger's face tightened. Don't even consider. I'm not. I sat across from him. But have different proposal. I'm listening. Documented patterns in entities' behavior. Think there's weakness we can exploit. I placed notebook on his desk. Activity fluctuates with weather conditions. Can't manifest certain forms on rainy days. Extras can't perfectly replicate unique physical features. Roger opened notebook, examining detailed notes and diagrams. For first time since meeting him, he smiled. Been waiting for someone to ask that, he said quietly. Someone who sees what I see, thinks like I do. Ask what? His eyes met mine, spark of hope present I'd never seen before. If there's way to fight back. To end this. Is there? Don't know, Roger admitted. But in 20 years, I've collected my own observations. He unlocked bottom desk drawer and pulled out thick binder. Maybe together we can find answer. As office entered around us, we remained in Roger's office, comparing notes under desk lamplight. For first time since starting Access Corporation, I felt something beyond fear or confusion. Purpose. Whatever haunted this building had ruled unchallenged for 15 years. But perhaps that was about to change.